In a world where war never ends, one man carries the weight of a generation, survivor of the battlefield, bringing you hard truths and hot lead, reviews from the locker, and trips to the meat grinder. Now he's taking you behind enemy lines, not into combat, into truth, stories from 1st Recon Battalion. With no BS conversations. Marine, veteran, Brad Iceman Colbert. Where legends tell it like it is. This is not just a podcast, it's a mission.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Carry On Podcast with your host, Brad Colbert, the Iceman. With me today is Alex Lemons, a Marine sniper who has recently written a book called Warbody, annotating his extraordinary journey from the battlefield back into the American Veterans Health medical system and a lot of the unique struggles that has gone along with that. So Alex, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it.
I have read your book twice, once slow and then skimmed through it a second time to refresh myself on a lot of the bits and the pieces.
Cool.
Without exaggeration, one of the most unique books that I have ever read. And that is not a platitude. That is absolutely the truth. In not just the story that you tell, but the mannerism in which you are telling it. You did this in conjunction with what I can only assume now is one of your good friends, yes?
That's right.
All right. So Josh Howe is as a doctor and a teacher. He has a nice resume in and of himself. And the two of you have an interesting origin story. I'll let you explain that. Before we get to the book and the story that you want to tell, let's let everybody know just a little bit more about you. So let's start with the very beginning. When did you enlist in the Marine Corps?
3 days after 9/11.
And how old were you?
I would have been 21.
Okay. So you and I enlisted in the Marine Corps at the same age because I was also 21.
Okay.
Which meant that we were a little older than the 17 through 19, 20-year-olds that were in the barracks. Okay. Yeah. And it put us at both at an advantage and a disadvantage, at least for me. Real briefly, what was the amount of time between you finishing school and the events of 9/11?
Well, I still had a year left in school. I almost bailed.
That's what I thought.
And Robert, this Vietnam vet, was the one who said, you have to finish, Alex. So I sucked up that last year, got my diploma, and literally within a week, I'm on the yellows.
Yeah. So I'm deliberately asking you questions I know the answers to because I want everyone to fully understand the picture. A lot of what you have spoken about is annotated in the book, and it's done very, very well in painting that picture. But so you had finished school. America had been at war for a little while, and you knew that you wanted to contribute. Why the Marine Corps?
The longest basic training. I assumed that, again, when I went down there and talked to the recruiter, which was the easiest sell he'd ever had.
It was the same for me. I asked for guaranteed infantry. He had
Absolutely.
He had to stop laughing long enough to go, oh, yeah, I'll see what I can do. Hold on. Yeah. Let me see. I'll pull a few strings.
Well, it wasn't until I'd gone to MEPS that he found out that I was about to get a bachelor's degree. So he couldn't believe that I was going the enlisted route either. But that's how I was always going to do it, is just start at the bottom, climb my way up. I made sure to finish school. But my focus that whole last year was just on what was happening primarily in Afghanistan. Iraq wasn't even on anybody's, it was on the minds of many of our political leaders in both parties, and also different thinkers in this like gigantic thing we call the blob of foreign policy. It just, 9/11 kind of allowed them to give extra justification to finally go in there. So by the time I graduated, Iraq was starting to kind of echo in the background, but Afghanistan was still kind of the thing that was going to happen. And like I said, I assumed that I would go straight from boot camp maybe a little bit of SOI, and then go straight into it. And
Yeah.
from everything I had read, because I'd read so much about the Marines, the Army, I have like a bunch of relatives too who were in the Army. Everybody was like, yeah, if you want a little bit better training in that short amount of time, then go to the Marine Corps.
True.
And that was the decision I made.
Yeah, well, it turned out to be the best and possibly the worst that you could have done. So you were sure that you wanted to do it enlisted to work your way up, and 0311 as opposed to any of the other MOSs. And for those of you that are not aware, 0311 is your Marine rifleman. So in the Army, it's an 11 Bravo. Navy and Air Force don't really have an equivalent, so we're not going to discuss them. But why none of the other MOSs that were within the infantry field?
I mean, I think this is something I mentioned in the book.
Yeah.
But I grew up in a family of caretaking Mormon farm women.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I was raised was always to put other people's needs in front of my own. And effectively joining like the worst MOS that's going to be the hardest in the Marine Corps is like the most amount of care that you can give to other people. Like I really did not, when the towers came down, I wasn't like gung ho excited. I knew we're going to war and this is probably going to end badly, but I wasn't necessarily like gung ho and grabbing a flag. I mean, I love my country, but I fucking hate all the people in charge. That's always been my, state of mind long before I joined up. But I think in part because of that, I just wanted to be if I'm going to be in the worst situation, then I want to be in the worst MOS with, those guys, some gals, but mostly guys.
Yeah, you definitely chose it because a Marine 0311 rifleman is about as, I don't want to say the lowest occupational specialty you could get, but it is definitely the least glamorous, the most arduous. I graduated the School of Infantry as an 0311, but I've never done a day of its job. And so I only know what it's like at infantry school. Never went to a line company, but from everything that I have seen, heard, witnessed, oh my God. Yeah. Absolutely arduous.
Poor bloody infantry.
Yeah.
As they say.
Especially when you first, show up, your first unit, you are, E2, maybe E3 if you were meritoriously promoted or came in with a rank.
Yeah.
And you're just treated like shit. Absolute. So you went to Camp Horno.
I did.
Yeah, which is basically across the street from the School of Infantry.
I did.
Yes. You just marched your sea bag across the road to the barracks.
I think it was last names A through M.
Yeah.
Got on a bus and went to Horno, and then everybody else went to 29 Palms. Though the training at 29 Palms is superior because you can do so many more things than you
bigger
can
range
at Camp
fans,
Pendleton.
better. Yeah, I've done many a CAX.
Right.
And then whatever they called the CAXs afterwards, I can't remember the combined arms. I don't remember, but
Mojave Viper.
Mojave Viper.
Yes.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. And once the Afghanistan/Iraq campaign kicked off, and I apologize, I pronounced the both of those as American and Caucasian as possible. So then how did you navigate from being an 0311 infantryman, a basic rifleman, a boot, to being a scout sniper? Because there's selection process involved in that.
There is.
Both your physical and mental and also your shooting skills.
Yeah. I possibly had one of the shortest workups in Marine infantry history other than like somebody in Vietnam or like World War II. Because 1-4 was slotted to go into the invasion, and they had been supporting you guys during the beginning of Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan.
Yep.
But they sat on the boat. So a lot of the senior Marines were stop loss. They were extended. I looked in the history books, and 1-4, 1st Battalion, 4th Marines, that was my battalion, they had 75% first first deployment new joins when I came to that unit.
That's
we were
huge.
One of the youngest battalions in the Marine Corps. And then we had extremely seasoned senior people, like in all platoons. My platoon for the invasion had 8 sergeants.
That's a lot.
So there were too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But my entire workup was about 34 days long on the Dubuque, on the seas.
I know the Dubuque.
Yeah.
Done a deployment on the Dubuque. Okay. No longer with us.
No longer with us. None of my ships are with us. My MOS doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my ships are gone.
You're not alone. There's a lot of MOSs that the Marine Corps has retired.
For sure.
So I had a lot of good friends in the tank community.
Yep.
Completely gone, as you know. But so you were not a graduate of the Scout Sniper School when you were doing your workup with 1-4.
No, I was a pig. So I was a professional instructor of gunmen.
Yeah.
I went through the invasion with 1-4. Throughout that, I always saw the snipers. I saw you guys too on the side of the road, but mostly I saw the snipers, and I was always curious, like what else they were up to, because they seem to have so much more influence, even as enlisted folks, on platoon commanders, company commanders, even the battalion commander. And as things went on in Alpha Company, I was in a boat company, though I never went through a boat package.
Okay.
The luck of the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
I just was I was getting bored of the 0311 life, and maybe I just wasn't fitting in because I questioned a lot of orders. I thought that was a good thing too.
No, that's not a good thing as an 0311, especially if you're under the rank of E5. I don't advise it. Yeah.
Eventually my instincts on that were right, because as you kind of season up, the longer you do this job, you start to realize that what can go wrong will go wrong, Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
And so by questioning things, when things do fall apart, you're kind of ready to figure out how to solve the problem and achieve the mission in a different way. So as time went on that summer, and we all secretly realized we were coming back, like nobody above, I think the rank of captain would have said it at the time, but we were like, guys at my range were saying this is a guerrilla war, because everybody was reflecting on their uncles and their dads in Vietnam. And they were like, this is a lot fucking similar. We got back, had to do.
Well, when did you return? When did you return to Camp Pendleton when you say you got back?
September of 2003.
Okay. Got it.
And then because I was so junior, I couldn't go home for a month on leave because I didn't have that much time in the books.
Got it.
So I got posted to recruiting duty for a month and learned that terrible trade. I think that's the hardest job I ever had in the Marine Corps. It is.
I did recruiter's assistance. It's 2 weeks. It's it's rough.
It's rough.
It is. My hat is off to those that have the job of going out and trying to sell military service to the civilian.
For sure.
Yeah.
Especially in an era where when I was doing it in 2002, it was like 50% of 18 to 35-year-olds were unfit in all the different categories for service. Now it's like 75.
Yeah.
So I came back and there was a flyer going around the battalion about the indoctrination course for Scout Snipers, because they were losing all the senior guys. Okay. So my buddy Doc Newton and I, corpsman from 1st Platoon, I was in 2nd Platoon, we decided to try out, and along with my buddy Simpson, who eventually became my assistant team leader, we went through a 7-day fun run screener.
Who held the indoc? Was it folks from within 1-4? It was in-house?
Yeah, it was all in-house from the platoon.
Okay,
got it. So the chief scout at the time was Sergeant Espina. He ran it. And then we had probably like 5 hogs, which is a hunter of gunmen. That's somebody who's graduated Scout Sniper School. And at the time, it was the MOS was a secondary MOS, 8541.
That's right.
And it was a fun kind of gut check. And a lot of it was just kind of getting slayed and going sleepless. But there were little lessons in between about what we would actually be doing, which was a lot more cerebral and boring than anything that you'll read in a book or see in a movie.
Yeah. A lot of military movies leave out those parts, turning weapons into the armory, cleaning the vehicles, laundry, the barracks. Yeah.
Well, and especially for snipers and reconnaissance Marine, our business is observation.
Yeah.
Not engaging the
Correct.
enemy. We're there to gather information of all sorts so that we can save the lives of every kind of Marine, but especially 0311.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, the scout snipers are typically the battalion commanders over the hill reconnaissance element, sending you ahead, either recon push or recon pull. Sniping or, precision target engagement is oftentimes secondary to the gathering of information about what is in front of the battalion. So it's a valuable role, but as you said, it can be extraordinarily mundane. Yeah. So in that vetting process, did you do any shooting?
None.
Okay. So up until that point, all of your shooting was either out of basic training, School of Infantry, or what ammo you had allotted during your workup.
That's right.
Okay. But you must have graduated infantry with an expert badge.
No, I didn't. I pizza boxed.
Really?
In boot camp. I got pink eye. I got pink eye 24 hours before range day.
That is about the worst thing that could happen.
My junior DI, drill instructor, Sergeant Lucero, just mean green belt. We kind of locked horns throughout the cycle and just kind of went at it because he just tried to thrash me out of existence, and I just survived and hung tough the whole time.
Good. I like that.
But I got pink eye when we went up north.
Okay.
But I qualified, and that's all that fucking matters.
It is.
You qualified.
Don't go unk.
They let me into the platoon and said they would let me, recertify and shoot expert another time. And we did that during the workup for 2004. So I shot expert the next time I got the opportunity.
Yeah, because unless they've changed the standards, of course, the school is gone, the MOS is gone. We'll talk about that as well. But at that time, you had to show a very high degree of marksmanship in order to be a candidate for the brick and mortar school. So let's fast forward just a little bit. When did you actually go through the sniper course, the school? Assuming you went through Pendleton's, yes?
I did.
Okay.
I did. That would have been the end of spring and the beginning of summer 2004. And our platoon ended up being decimated. All of our senior hogs, because they had been already been extended and they didn't want to extend again, they sent them over to 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines. So they went through 1st Fallujah. So we had 3 hogs in the whole platoon.
Not a lot.
Not a lot. And none of them, one of them had just gotten out of drill instructor's school, my staff sergeant.
So rusty.
So it had been a while.
Yeah.
My buddy Revert, who was a former cook turned sniper. He had just graduated school. And then we had my buddy Adam Brzezowski, who was one of the draft picks. We traded 2-1 with the senior guys to get a junior hog. That was it. And I went through reconnaissance and surveillance school, probably just like you did. I was made a team leader as a pig throughout that school. So the workup, I was a pig sniper team leader, learning everything on the job, just absorbing what I could from all the instructors or whatever I could read in a book.
But because it was a secondary MOS, that was not unheard of. And it was not the worst thing in the world. When I enlisted in the Marine Corps, reconnaissance was a secondary MOS as well. It wasn't until years later that it became a primary. So, it was always this specter held over your head. If you fuck up, we'll send you back to an infantry battalion. Like, well, hold on now. So, and once that was made a primary, all those threats went away. But see, during the initial invasion, which you were a part of, you had not yet graduated sniper school.
No.
What was your experience in that 2003 invasion? Were you in a sniper platoon? Were you a rifleman?
I was just a rifleman.
Okay.
So I was in Alpha Company.
So you were garrisoned. Where did you do were you in Matilda? Where were you at in Kuwait, or were you on a ship? I want everybody to follow along.
So we steamed out there 34 days.
What is steaming? Explain it.
I think it's running on jet fuel.
Okay.
Because we're Marines, we're Navy men
Mhm.
and women. So we always are going to be at sea. And the longer a Marine's away from the boat, the more confused they become about their identity.
That's hilarious.
For sure.
So you got on a ship at in San Diego.
Yep.
And then sailed over
Right. Nonstop.
We
We did stop in Pearl, but they wouldn't let us off the boat.
Okay.
That was the first time I've been to Hawaii.
Yeah. That's terrible. Found yourself over in the Persian Gulf.
Right.
And then from there, did you take LCAC? Did you take an LCU? Did you take a helicopter?
We took a helicopter, my first one, with no HAB D,
Yeah, none of the escape bottles. If
No
the helicopter, no training in the helo dunker,
None.
just an over the water flight, probably 14, 15 miles at minimum before you even got feet dry. Where did you touch down? Was it before the invasion had started, or was it once we crossed the line of departure?
That was at least a month before.
A month
So that
before.
would have been in almost the beginning second week of February.
Yep.
2003.
Yeah.
We went to Camp Coyote.
Okay, Coyote is where you staged at.
And so I
Got
was
it.
with 1st Marine Regiment. So
Mhm.
that was Colonel Tulin, if you're remembering any of the bosses that are in charge. And then,
Vaguely. You're
Mattis-
asking me to go back
Okay.
a long time in my mind now.
well, Mattis is the one who was running the
I
division.
do
So everybody's going to
yeah.
remember James
Everybody-
Mattis.
I do, yes.
Because
I know.
he was at least seen like there at our level, eye level. And that was shocking to me.
Yeah.
Like I'd never seen any of the other brass like make any personable approaches to anybody in
Right.
the Marine Corps. So that's where I learned more about the job. I was in a different squad, and then almost 48 hours before the invasion, I got shipped over to 1st Squad. I was an ATL. So my 203 got handed in for a saw that I didn't even zero. And then the next thing you know, we load up on tracks.
Mhm.
Originally, we were going to be on 7 tons, and then we're on tracks, and then away we go.
Okay, Amtrak.
Amtrak.
is a tracked armored personnel carrier. It has an aluminum skin, which is not bulletproof. It's bullet resistant.
Right.
We came across the Amtraks that have been hit by A-10s by mistake. It's probably one of the most gut-wrenching things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Not where I want to be going into war. Not where I want to be. Now, had you been in an Amtrak prior?
None.
So you're, 22 years old.
Right.
You have just been given a weapon that you had not been familiar with, had not done a workup with. Well, I don't want to, that's a mischaracterization. You're probably familiar with the operation of the weapon, but not what you had expected to do. 48 hours prior, changed squads? Yeah. Yeah, that tracks. That's infantry. So how long were you mobile inside the Amtraks before you dismounted? Or did you stay with the Amtraks the entire time?
Almost the entire time.
Okay.
I mean, we would, because I was junior Marine, I was right up at the front next to the engine and
Mhm.
sometimes handing things up to my platoon commander or fucking around with the radios, which are kind of right there at the back next to the engine.
Yeah.
So sometimes I would go without seeing daylight for many hours or nightlight. And then all of a sudden the ramp would drop and we would need to get out in a hurry, or we would just disperse, herringbone, dig in. We were digging in every night, just like you guys were, I would assume.
We dug in most nights, but
Okay.
not every.
Right.
I think that, and we're laying kind of the foundation for this bifurcation of paths and how some of those paths end up in different directions.
For sure. Yep.
The reconnaissance community was not the infantry. We did not do a lot of the things that I think the straight-legged infantry did. We dug in most nights, but not all. Sometimes we just slept inside the Humvee. Sometimes we slept adjacent to the Humvee. Tactics is a funny thing. It's dictated not necessarily by SOP, but by, dare I say, common sense. And I feel, at least at that time, that the reconnaissance community had access to common sense more than the infantry did. Infantry is not allowed by law to use common sense. If it's not printed in a book, page 7, paragraph 3, subsection 2, you can't do it. And the rules say every day the infantryman must dig a hole of a certain size and a certain depth, and then stand watch with someone else. So I get it. And I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I think if you were to look back, knowing what you know now, would you say that a lot of that repetitive movement, digging in, and the mechanism of movement probably exacerbated some of the things that you wrote about?
Certainly dust inhalation. Yeah. But then, then I'm eternally grateful I dug in every night, because most of the worst indirect fire I was in, like over all those tours, was my own artillery that hit me. Like my platoon got hit by 155 during the invasion.
Do you know the unit that was responsible?
We met them in Kuwait when we were redeploying. They were super apologetic. I mean, they thought we looked like Iraqis because we were wearing those green mop suits. You remember?
How could I forget? I still have my mop suit.
You didn't have to turn it in?
No, nobody wants it. I mean, it's just riddled with flop sweat, and it's about the worst thing that you could ever do. How the fuck could you confuse anyone in that equipment with a local Iraqi, whether it's militia, soldier, or otherwise? Like, it is such a unique uniform, and from one Marine to the next. I might understand if it was, a foreign sister service artillery unit, but
yeah, I mean, luckily nobody died when that happened. My buddy Andy, he's shitting in a bag still from that. He got a piece of shrapnel in the guts.
Okay,
but I think the guys who told me that, they were the same age as we were, as far as inexperience, and their workup was short and sweet. So when I look at 1st Marine Division, in hindsight, especially now, being kind of seasoned up, even though I haven't carried a rifle in a long time, I still have the experiences of knowing what a trained troop is and is not. 1st Marine Division was insanely young and insanely inexperienced, and none of us had trained together before. We'd done, guys had done unit deployments together, and maybe a few times the regiment, minus one battalion, but all of us together in one big Walmart-sized fleet going through Iraq. So maybe I kind of cut them some slack at the same time that I acknowledge that that's insane. We don't look like Iraqis whatsoever. But
was there any other time during that period in Iraq, 2003, that you were in a firefight?
No. I mean, I've definitely been hit by IDF, but I fired my weapon once.
Okay.
On command. We were clearing a couple mud buildings. Sure. I didn't see anybody, but I was just being told to fire like crazy. And so I did. Thankfully, I didn't hit anybody or anything. But otherwise, that was my experience of the invasion, was just kind of one long drive-by shooting until we got to Baghdad.
How long were you static in Baghdad before you retrograded?
So my platoon was the first one to clear the cigarette factory. We were the first guys through the gate and start climbing through those buildings and all those ashtrays and all those fucking cigarettes.
Did you keep any of the cigarettes that you came across? Any of the packages?
I mean, everybody did except for me. I wasn't a smoker.
I wasn't either, but
I became a smoker by secondhand, inheritance. So.
We ended up in that factory after you guys had already left.
Yeah. Well, they kicked us into the back.
Yeah.
We were in the back.
I wonder,
that's where I got Saddam's revenge.
If we might have seen one another or walked past one another and didn't even know it.
Probably, man.
It's possible.
Yeah.
So you clear the cigarette factory. You're in Baghdad. How long were you there? Tell me again before you left and went back to the ship.
September. We didn't go back to the ship.
You didn't?
No. Okay. I mean, Mattis would come and tell us every month. We went down to Hilla. Which is kind of a mixed city of Shia and Sunni. And that's where I spent the bulk of the summer.
Okay.
So we had a place called the Pistol Factory where they made these knockoff Soviet handguns. They never let us take any of them home, sadly. But
sons of bitches.
Mattis would come once a month, and it would be in a space like this where we would get right up to him and he would say, you know, my fine young men, we won't be getting on the ship this month, but maybe next month. And that, you know, kept going and going. And then we went on all these crazy wild goose chases looking for weapons of mass delusion. Didn't find any. No, there are no Al-Qaeda here, but now they are starting to come, and they're coming from other countries.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually the ships go home without us. And then we move again to a place called Hashemiya, where I spent like the final couple, what would be 2 months. And then in September we left.
And what were you, aside from the sporadic patrols, the heightened sense of alert, the constant vigilance, what were you doing? What was your daily routine? Are you a PFC or a Lance Corporal?
I'm an E3, Lance Corporal.
Okay, continue.
So my day to day would have been, if I'm not in trouble, well, if I'm in trouble, I got some shit barrels to burn.
What is a shit barrel?
So a shit barrel is how we're handling human waste. You take an oil barrel that you've found in Iraq, probably one that once had leaded gasoline, you saw it in half. Then you have 2 barrels. That's what you're going to defecate into. Mm-hmm. You build like a cardboard table kind of that you can sit on, maybe cut a triangle out of it, maybe put up a poncho liner or like some kind of, or poncho, just as like a shade cover over
a little privacy screen. Yeah,
exactly.
Sure.
And that's where you're going to defecate.
Yeah.
And then somebody's got to pull that out, mm-hmm. mix it with jet fuel or whatever fuel you have and burn those feces out, because shit attracts flies. Flies bring disease. Disease destroys armies. That's a huge part of why your company gunnies and your company first sergeants are such assholes, because they got to worry about disease, non-battle injuries. And those are the things that break all armies.
What were you wearing for PPE when you're taking care of the honeypots?
Boots and utes.
Yeah.
I have some black gloves.
Yep.
And occasionally I would take, like, we cut up t-shirts from our sleeves, the green on greens, mm-hmm. get those wet and pull them over our faces to kind of keep you wet, because you get dry so much in the face.
Yeah.
You could wear a gas mask, but you'd sweat so much that it would start slipping off. And after having worn the mask during the invasion, and goddamn right, I may have thought a lot of this was make-believe, but I was going to make sure my mask fit every goddamn time.
Yes.
But the longer that you're in there sweating in Iraq's heat, it just loosens off to the point where you lose the seal.
And the sweat starts to pool into the chin cup there, where your drinking straw comes in. The lenses get fogged. It really is the worst way to fight.
For sure.
Like what our great grandfathers must have done in World War I is beyond me. I can't even imagine going over the trench with those very first gen in mustard gas and just
terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying. So shit duty. Then we would have, we had built these huge towers that were like 50 feet high. The Seabees had, and we might do guard duty on those because we're living as a company at this point in the summer. We would do daily kind of presence patrols where we go and meet and greet the Iraqis and just show that we're still there. Or we get a tip off at the gate about there might be some weapons of mass destruction hidden here. And we find maybe surface to air missiles or just like an old Iraqi army cache.
Yeah, because the Iraqi on the street really doesn't know what qualifies as a weapon of mass destruction. Even if there was a big sign and pointing right here. So, and a lot of times I think that they would just ask you to investigate something because they knew you would do it. And what you were investigating was somebody who they had a grudge against.
Sure.
Or they owed money to. So they were, taking advantage of us.
Or sometimes, they just want to put their kids back in school. Yeah. And the Iraqi army had occupied schools. So we want those kids to go back to school as well. So we need to dig up a cache of surface to air missiles that are buried in the soccer playing field right behind the school. We also have trash burning duties.
Tell me about the trash duties.
Once again, the Seabees came and they dug a huge trench, like probably 10 to 15 feet deep, that was about 100 yards long. And this is because we have so much stuff that we're now bringing in because we're not living out of our packs anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The longer that things lengthen and it becomes an occupation, the more equipment we've got to bring, the more food we've got to bring, the more mail we're getting. We're not eating MREs all the time because you don't want to eat MREs longer than 21 days.
No, they stop you up. They do really bad things to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're getting regular rations, T-rats, so they're heated up rations.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are you going to do with all of these plates and all of these aluminum tins? And now we need more batteries for the radios, lithium batteries. Well, what are we going to do with these lithium batteries? There's no place to recycle them. Well, if we leave them on the street, somebody might turn that into an IED. They might use that piece of material against us. So throw it in the trash pit, throw it in the trash pit, throw it in the trash pit, and then light it. And then it's burning all the time.
Yes.
Even when you don't see the flames,
Yeah.
things are still burning in the bottom of that trash pit.
There's, for me, I don't know how it is for you, but a lot of things will bring me back into memories of that time.
Mm-hmm.
Burning trash is one of the most powerful memory triggers for me. When I smell it, and it is unique, it is not burning leaves, it is not woods, it is not a structure fire. It is, oh, I know that. That is burning trash. I hate that smell. I hate it. And instantly I'm back. And we didn't do it often because we were never, I don't want to say never. We were not stagnant as long as you were to build these slit trenches. When we were adjacent to other units that did.
Right.
And we just walked it over and dumped it into theirs. And then someone else burned it. So I never stood next to the burning trash. But I could smell it. It's a horrible smell.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you returned back to Camp Pendleton in September of 2003.
Right.
You stayed in the Marine Corps long enough to do another 3 deployments.
That's right.
2 of those deployments as a scout sniper. How do the deployments compare once you were a scout sniper with when you were not? Did you have the same duties and responsibilities? Did you have the same? Because I know you were higher up in rank, and rank does have privileges, but what was being asked of you to do, how did it differ if you were to sort of sum it up?
It only got harder and my responsibilities got greater.
Explain.
So as a scout sniper team leader, you're effectively a small unit commander. You are the eyes and ears of the whole battalion. So 1,500 other Marines are going to depend on you to make decisions about the information that you gather before, during, and after everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes when people think about reconnaissance and surveillance, they think maybe we're just looking at like the hinges on a door. That's important because you can communicate to the people who have to do the assault how to detonate that door.
Yeah.
But we also use other senses. Like, for instance, if we want to sneak up on a compound and there's like a really sulfury, smelly hot springs, we can use that to cover the assaulting force.
Mm-hmm.
Or if we're on a beach, we can put our hands down on that sand and figure out like, how stable is it? How soft is it? Will this like helicopter landing zone that everybody and their mother back in the rear is saying it's a perfect spot, but when you're on the ground, it's mushy like a sponge. That's the kind of information that I was learning how to gather in training and in school that I'd be passing on to save the lives of like the entire company, if not the entire battalion. So as the workup went on, I was lucky because my battalion commander was a former enlisted and a former enlisted sniper.
Okay. So he knew intimately what your capabilities were, how to best employ you, and then probably extended a tremendous amount of respect and trust. How many people were you in charge of? When you say team, how many?
4.
And of those 4, what is the rank composition? You were a sergeant.
I was a corporal when I started.
Okay.
And my assistant team leader, Adam Simpson, he was a lance corporal. And then I had 2 PFCs.
Very junior.
Yeah.
A lot of responsibility for an E4 to be responsible for maybe picking the best path for 1,500 other of your fellow Marines to walk.
Sure. But I think that's like in the true spirit of what the Marine Corps is supposed to be, which is you push the power down to the junior enlisted guys, because the history of the Marine Corps is fighting on ship to ship and small wars. And in small wars, you can't be micromanaging people.
That's right.
So I've like immediately took to the job and was like, wow, this is like what the whole Marine Corps is supposed to be like.
Yeah.
I like fell in love with it, even though we weren't shooting as much as I would have liked. Just like doing the business of team leader and going through the workup. And I really got good at route reconnaissance for the assaulting force. So for a team leader like me or like you, they'll put us on the ground maybe a day or 3 or 4 days before somebody has to land on a beach or off a ship or from a helo. And in that time, we're going to go and study this objective with all these magical radios and try to figure out a way to like fight gravity, mountains, like the rare earths in the soil that can fuck up a radio signal to try to get that information back so that we can make the right decision. Well, I got really good at like finding routes because I have like a photographic memory for place. So I don't get lost. And this will come in handy later when my memory starts to fall apart.
Well, so definitely a lot more cerebral, probably a lot more responsibility and involvement, which for an academia such as yourself was huge, right? Like job satisfaction is incredibly important, and let's not sugarcoat it. There is very little job satisfaction in being in the military in many cases. At the lower levels, and specifically at the job that you started out with, which is an 0311. I mean, a basic rifleman, it's not exactly, no one goes in and thinks of a lofty career as a Marine rifleman, but it's a great place to start, and it's a great place to get your foundation all set.
Well, the decisions that I would make as a team leader, I always had to keep in mind that the 0311 is the person who's going to have to do that. So having been that person, I knew how to like talk to them eye to eye and also realize like my job is to protect them.
A huge advantage in that lens and that context. And you did all of the 4 deployments in the same geolocation, obviously Iraq.
Yep.
Never went to Afghanistan.
No.
Okay. And didn't have the opportunity to do any sort of ground warfare anywhere else?
None. I mean, the bulk of the time on my 3rd deployment was just a MEU where we floated the Pacific and back.
Okay.
But then we became the operational reserve in 2006 for the whole war effort in Iraq.
So time in Kuwait, you spent time in Kuwait, at least a little time, but the bulk of your OCONUS experience was, aside from your MEU, where you stopped and made port calls, it was on the ground in theater in Iraq. Did you revisit a lot of the same ground that you had done on your 1st and 2nd deployments on your later ones?
Absolutely.
Like
everybody else.
Yeah.
I think we always called it Groundhog Day in Iraq, not just because of like the day-to-day of driving out and getting blown up and coming back, but the ways in which you'd be nearing the end of your deployment and know I'm going to come right back here. And it's frightening to feel like there's no progress being made if that's kind of the ebb and flow of these deployments. But a lot of them were like that, which again, like we're kind of talking down the road in the book, but it was already having detrimental effects on everybody's morale to just think nothing's really improving, even if we clear this block or we get in this firefight, or like, especially after the high and maybe a lot of the tales told by the Bush administration in 2003 to not have any detonators, to never find any weapons of mass destruction. And then to just see like the occupation by the brass and also the Coalition Provisional Authority, which were the suits and the State Department that were supposed to manage reconstruction efforts, there was none.
Yeah.
They de-Baathified everything. They fired anybody who was in the Ba'ath Party. But here's the thing. If you talk to any Iraqi who grew up during that time, you had to be in the Ba'ath Party to do anything. You want to join the soccer team? You have to sign a pledge to President Saddam Hussein. You want to be in Glee Club? Well, you fucking have to join the Ba'ath Party. So if you fire people because they're in this organization, you're not going to have anybody to run the sewage treatment plants, the schools, the electricity, the hospitals. We fucking fired everybody in the army who have all this training, not to mention their honor. And it's just making things worse and worse and worse. And then Abu Ghraib happens, which is, we should have burned Abu Ghraib to the ground. It was an evil place. Like, people knew that in Iraq, the Iraqis, if you would have asked them, it was an evil place. But with all of that, we're just getting ready to go right back in there in 2004. And the fighting was far worse. Like, it was the kind of thing that I thought that we were going to get into when I signed up. And my battalion, I mean, I just kind of hit the I don't know, I want to say this. I hit the jackpot as far as combat goes. It's all luck, whether you're going to get in this or you're going to get deployed here or there.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just your last name. Sometimes it's somebody else getting hurt. And in my case, I ended up in the Battle of An-Najaf, which lasted for almost a month in August of 2004. And then I went up to Phantom Fury for that shindig in November in Fallujah. So thankfully I had by then that first deployment and then all the training that I had had as a pig. And then when I graduated sniper school.
Did you lose anyone during that deployment?
Not anybody in my platoon, but I lost 5 friends in 2004. And it was like kind of one after the other. And I was thinking about this recently because I had a friend OD 2 weeks ago from 1-4. Each one of those friends that died, I didn't get to go to the funeral. I didn't even like see them die. They like died a block down from like a hide site that I was hiding in. Or I was in one part of town and they were in another part. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing I know, I just get a radio call that they're KIA.
It was pretty ruthless 2004. It was that in many ways, and I'll echo your sentiment. I was not there. And so I am by no means speaking firsthand, but the war of 2004, Iraq of 2004 is the war that we all expected in 2003 that never happened. I think the shock and awe of our invasion of 2003 guaranteed a really fast, lightning fast capitulation of the government. And then there was that reset by the opposition, turned into an asymmetrical fight, and we got our asses kicked in 2004. I think that's when we really started losing lives. And the TTPs, I don't think were evolving fast enough. I don't think the doctrine was evolving fast enough.
For sure. And I mean, a lot of like, especially that deployment, and especially when I went through school, all my instructors almost all of them had gone through the invasion, but we were also getting reports straight from the horse's mouth in Ramadi, and Fallujah in 2004, because they'd already gone through one big battle there. And so a lot of the equipment I brought a hammer so that I could knock mouse holes and loopholes into walls, and a chisel. I bought a whole bunch of these periscopes. We were talking about World War I, where to get over the trench, they would just have a straight kind of mirrored box set that they had built. Well, we have these little ones, and they came in super handy because there's a lot of great ledges that you can get cover behind, but they're literally kind of chest height, and you don't want to put your head over the wall even if you're wearing a helmet. So you can spy up. Small laser range finders. I mean, the problem that I faced as far as employment goes in 2004 was that there was a team from 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines that had been betrayed in Ramadi by some Iraqis, and then they were killed in the hide site. And the rifle, their M40 sniper rifle, was taken from them. So because of that, the command really freaked out about letting snipers have full free range. They wanted to expand the number of Marines we had in a team. And I sometimes like going out with just me and my spotter Bernison, just because the lighter the footprint, the easier it is to
100%,
get around.
100%. Speed is security oftentimes.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I was surprised because the Marine Corps likes to strut around like it's so tough, but it was a safety freak organization.
Yeah.
And this is war. Like, you have to take risk if you're going to protect your people. But I just kind of ran into that wall, and then sometimes I just found ways to get around it by disobeying orders, or I'm out of comms, so nobody can really tell me what to do.
Right.
And there was a lot of on the fly training, but that's the real bread and butter, I think, of being a small unit leader, is like mission planning is what it's all about.
100%.
That's the thing that matters the most. And
yeah. Yep. Albert Einstein once said if he had an hour to save the world, he would spend 59 minutes planning for it and 1 minute executing it. And I like that because I think it sums up so well the difference between a professional and an amateur.
Yeah.
You know, an amateur just grabs the gun with the 14 pieces of flare and rushes into the firefight.
Right.
The professional takes a moment, assesses the situation, comes up with a plan, and then executes it. And I think that's maybe one of the great failures of the military industrial complex, especially at that time, is I don't think we really put a lot of foresight and thought into it. A lot of it was very reactive and not as proactive. Now, I didn't visit Iraq again until 2007. So there was a huge gulf of time for me. So for me, it was 03 and then 07. And that was a huge jarring change for everything.
Yeah.
But you saw the slow iterative Groundhog Days, you said, from 2003 and then 4. And then when was your last trip over there? What year?
That was Surge. So I did 10 months from beginning of August 2007 to the end of June 2008.
And what were you doing?
That was probably my oddest deployment. It's not really in this book. It's like a story for another day.
Okay.
I mean, I'm going to tell you whatever you want to know today.
Paraphrase it, because I think the topic lends itself towards sort of a different venue for you and I to have a conversation. But just kind of briefly paraphrase it before we bookend this extraordinary
I was a special
career.
assistant to the commanding general of the entire war effort, to David Petraeus.
Okay.
So my chain of command was a major in the United States Army, who was the adjutant, then a 2-star Marine general, Major General Paxton, and then David Petraeus. That was my chain of command throughout those 10 months. So I answered to nobody else. I was working with everybody else, though. So we would go where there were very few coalition troops. So the first 5 to 6 months, I was assigned to advise the Polish commander, Major General Tadeusz Buch, and get the Polish to do counterinsurgency operations, because they'd effectively walled themselves up in Diwania behind the T-walls. And the city had been taken over by Jaish al-Mahdi, which was a Shia militia. So we pushed the Poles into the street, got them to establish a joint security station, and started doing tribal reconciliation, because we were a small 3 Marine team that were doing this. So we didn't come with a lot of firepower, but we did come with the boss and a lot of money and just a lot of influence because of that.
Do you have a translator?
Always. But we never used we only used like local national translators, because we wanted people who understood the politics, didn't have an accent. And also I had to train those guys so that they'd be able to shoot, because we're such a small team. But literally I would go out with the Iraqis, which means that I didn't have to, do a massive PowerPoint and get permission to go anywhere. It's the way we should have fought the war, is just to not be so bloody micromanaged. And I was with 8th Iraqi Army Division. So that's where all of my supply chain, all of my food sometimes was, because I often would go days and sometimes weeks without seeing another American at certain points. The last probably last 5 months, I moved up to a place called Suwaira, which was a mixed town of Shia and Sunni. And this is why, while there's still a civil war happening in Iraq, so within the insurgency of Americans versus these different variations of like religious extremists, then just some old time Ba'ath Party members, different political makeups. There's also ethnic cleansing going on. So I lived through that part of the war in Suwaira, where I was attached to 3rd Battalion, 2nd Regiment, 8th Iraqi Armored Division, and was doing more tribal reconciliation, where we'd go out and meet tribal sheikhs, knowing that most Iraqis, I would say like almost like 85% of them, were not fans of the insurgency. They just needed a job.
Yeah.
And we would pay them more to work for us versus like Al Qaeda or the other group.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We basically gave an entire talent pool to the opposition by firing and disbanding so many of these officers. Yeah.
So a lot of it was making up for those poor decisions during 2003. And because by now I'm like so familiar with Iraq because of multiple deployments, I am not going to listen to anything that's coming out of the high command. I mean, Petraeus was a little different because he really realized that we had to focus on people rather than necessarily all this kinetic stuff. And then the obsession with the T word, terrorism. So like my day to day on that deployment would be, wake up, go have breakfast with the Iraqi army, figure out where we're going to go on a patrol that day, or if we've got meetings with some of these sheikhs, go out and do that business, come back, talk to the Polish general, figure out how many more troops we're going to put on the street, then come back, make a phone call to the boss, and then maybe we'll do a night patrol. That was a wild deployment for me because I only got in one firefight in 10 months. I mean, my job wasn't to really fight. My job was to get information, and then especially information in areas where there weren't a lot of Americans, and then go to the CG and say, you're getting smoke blown up your ass. Like, this is not the assessment that's right. So I went down to, like, for instance, the Iraqis had their own operation. It's the first big one they did where the British, they had the southern Iraq, right down in the port called Basra.
I know
they had abandoned the city. The political fallout of all the lies that were told, it hit Britain way different than it did here in the United States. Like, it brought down governments, and people were so pissed off that they were willing to pull the army out. Well, the insurgency, the Jaish al-Mahdi, and a lot of Iranian influenced militias, they took over Basra. And so the Iraqis were going to stand up their own force and try to stand on their own legs and go down there. So we went with them. I think there might have been like one SEAL team and maybe half a Green Beret team, and there were no other Americans. So we could pump back a report to the boss and tell them what was going on. And then it all wrapped up in Medina Sadr, Saddam City. That's where I ran my final mission. And I was with the army there, the United States Army. And after that, my body kind of made the decision that I wasn't going to be able to do this job anymore. But I think even if my health had stayed firm, I probably still would have wanted to get out because of that deployment. I saw more of like where the war is won and lost, and that's in the high command, like in the generals, because I was with them, yelling at them, arguing with them, just learning about them. A lot of times just like watching them and listening to them and seeing how different they were behind closed doors versus what you see in, like a Fox News report or an interview in the New York Times, or even just like, oh, look, the general's coming today and he's going to give a rah-rah speech. I think it just like, after all that bloodshed and all that loss, and all that education, I was like, God, this whole fucking organization is a trash heap. And little old me as a sergeant isn't going to be able to fix that unless I stay here for an incredibly long time.
And even then, there's no guarantee. You're fighting against a bureaucracy many times.
For sure. And I think by then too, there were maybe more things that I wanted to do. Like when I re-enlisted in 2006, I wanted to go be a sniper instructor at Bridgeport. That was my first choice.
Great choice.
Second one was to go to MARSOC because all my friends were going to go stand it up.
Yeah.
And then the third was to go to Scout Sniper Basic School because I had friends teaching there. I got flagged with recruiting. That didn't work out. But I think by then I'd accomplished what I wanted in the sense that I'd gotten all my friends out of Iraq. And it was time to let it go.
That's a tough choice. No matter if you're at the end of a career or mid-career or just starting out, knowing that it's time to leave, it's a hard decision to make. You are walking away from a brotherhood that, as bad as it could be, and it could be bad,
For sure.
unique in all the world. And you cannot find a facsimile that is unique. And I think that's one of the reasons why people continue to gravitate back towards, either VFW or reunion groups or looking out for other veterans because of that incredible culture and that bond that you just don't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that your body gave out on you. I want to talk a little bit about that. How did you, this is a really odd way to phrase it, but I mean, how were you feeling? How do you know that your body was giving out? What was different? What was a sign or a symptom? There you were, you're in country. It's 2006. What do you mean when you say that your body was starting to give out?
So, I write about this episode in the book, but in Najaf, I fell through a 2-story roof, collapsed underneath me. I was trying to get into a good firing position. We were trying to capture or kill a certain insurgent leader named Muqtada al-Sadr. He wasn't home. He was somewhere else. But I grew up skiing, so I know how to fall from really high things. I've been jumping off cliffs since I was a kid, so I'm not afraid to jump. And I know how to jump and not break my bones. So when I fell through the roof and fell on a cement floor, I was able to kind of relax my body. I was holding my sniper rifle because I didn't want to lose the zero, and then crash into the floor. I also banged my head, got a little concussion while that was happening. But that trauma was going to hit my body and affect it no matter how many ski jumps I've taken throughout my life. The idea to get up on that roof came from one of your platoons.
Really?
Yeah.
The specific location or the technique of climbing the roof?
The technique of climbing the roof.
Yeah. I'm not surprised.
We had a whole bunch of irrigation pipes. We were at Fob Hotel, which is just outside the cemetery. And Najaf has one of the world's biggest cemeteries on the planet. Adam and Eve might be buried there, according to different lore.
Yeah.
So they had these long sprinkler pipe, and we were trying to figure out a way we could get in the highest position possible without having to clear the building. We know we're not going to be able to helo in this area. So we did kind of a reverse pole vault where we put one Marine on one end of the pole and then 4 over here, and then ran that Marine right up against the wall, and then Spider-Man at the last minute and then push him up.
Okay.
So that's how I got up onto that roof with my M40. And I see a really sweet ledge that's like probably about 8 to 10 inches down so I can be in the prone.
Perfect.
And my spotter Bernison is going to come up right behind me. And this is like an open kind of alleyway that heads towards Sauter's house. So we'll be able to support the guys from there. I make it about halfway over this roof, and it's a corrugated roof. Bunch of little pebbles on it, rocks. And I start to realize, I think I'm on the crossbeam. I should be on the crossbeam. But I've only got like 5 yards left, and I can see the ledge getting ready. Peels like a fucking banana. And I'm down, but like I said, I've grown up jumping off of things, so I instantly kind of relax my body, grab my rifle, fall, hit the floor. But it did sting a little bit, but I felt the concussion more so than my legs hitting the floor. And I was wobbly and wanted to kind of throw up, and the sounds were kind of going in and out.
Oh yeah. The classic. Yep.
So my bell is rung, but my adrenaline is through the roof because on the other side of this closet that I've fallen into, and I hit my head on a pole, I can hear young Iraqi voices. And I think that's an AK bolt that's snapping back. So I've got to get my ass up. And so I put my 40 down. I have a A4. That was my favorite rifle because it had a longer barrel. And then the rest of my platoon clears the building. They pop open the door. There are, they've, I guess they've secured the Iraqis, and then we're just on the run. We're on the run, finding more positions. We don't grab and use that irrigation pole to get up anymore. We're just shooting off of car roofs and burned out fucking buses and little piles of dirt and bricks. And we finally rally with my chief scout, Revert, and his ATL and Burnison. And Revert looks at me and is like, Lemons, dog, are you fucking bleeding? I'm like, I don't even know what's going on. I'm so like zoned in on the job that I have no idea. I'm so dissociated from my body is what's going on, which is one of the things that you master at any level in whatever MOS you are in. Is sometimes you just have to turn off your own bodily pains to get through this job because the mission comes before the man, like including this man sometimes. So I had torn this wrist when I had fallen through that corrugated roof, and I had blood all over my 40. And so wrapped it up. That's when I could feel my feet hurting, my plantar fascia, really bad. That only got worse with each passing deployment. It was like walking on rum bottles some days. And I did everything I could to treat it. But what I really needed to do was just like lay off of it for a long time. And that just wasn't an option because I felt like I had to go back.
Yeah.
I had to keep going. I had to go, not just like during the deployment, but just on each coming deployment where maybe I could have medically separated or found a way out. But what really kind of, I think, drove a lot of my devotion to my friends was sometimes a pretty severe case of survivor's guilt, because that year I'd lost 5 friends. My best friend, one of my partners, died in sniper school. He didn't graduate with me. He died in like a really gruesome car crash on Basselin Road. And
what year was that?
04.
Okay.
So and then I had in the JOF, I had 3 friends who died in the battalion, and they were all kind of like head and neck shots that were really well aimed. And there was a fucking good core of counter snipers that we were facing off against. And I just wasn't ready for them. The gun that I had, so like a sniper rifle is an intricate piece of like science and art. And in order to have to know what distances you're going to shoot that rifle at, you have to accumulate a lot of data on that same gun and that same scope, because consistency is accuracy. Well, the gun that I had acquired all that data in sniper school was a school gun, because the guys were already out in Iraq before I was even there. So I showed up and they gave me a new weapon, and I got maybe like 30 shots off of it in Kuwait.
Nothing. I mean, that's nothing.
And the next thing I know, I'm in the fight with that. So I took all those deaths like way too personally. Just because, and then like being like not as well employed as I thought I should have been, and just thought, well, it's my fault that they got killed. So that kind of like pain in my heart was matched with the pain in my feet, which only got worse with each passing deployment.
Yeah.
So it got to the point where in the surge, in my little 3 Marine, fun size team, I was the team sergeant. So I handled all the weapons and all the equipment. I also was the medic because I went through EMT basic training before the deployment. So when I was in the turret, because that's where I spent a lot of my time in the Humvee, I had taken one of those green isomats that you sleep on, and I fucking glued that thing to the floor beneath my feet because I was in such fucking agony. But my feet were only like part of the story of what was going on with my body, because I was also starting to develop like very subtle food allergies that I'd never had before.
Can you give me an example?
So I'm living with the Iraqis, and so I'm like depending on them for my chow.
Mm-hmm.
They eat a lot of wheat. I grew up eating a lot of wheat. So did everybody else. Well, I started to notice like halfway through that deployment that I would just start to get like weird rashes on my skin from eating the wheat, or we'd have a lot of dairy.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I grew up on dairy, never had a problem with it. And then all of a sudden I would just like I'd feel like nauseous or just have a lot of brain fog after I'd had, we usually had like this halal dairy with our bread in the morning, samoon. It kind of looks like a fish, and you kind of open it up and make it a little sandwich in it. So, and then I was starting to get allergies. And of course, it's always dusty in Iraq, so everybody's sneezing. But that last deployment, I just started to notice, wow, like I'm waking up way more congested and snotty every day than in the previous deployments. And when I finally got out and came back to Salt Lake City in 2008,
when you say went back to Salt Lake City, that's your home of record.
Yep.
You got out of the Marine Corps.
I did.
Your last day was when?
That would have been the end of June 2008. And
end of June 2008.
Right, and because I went as a reservist off the inactive ready reserve for that last deployment, I had to do 2.5 weeks of bullshit training at Camp Lejeune, and then come back through Camp Lejeune. So when I came back that summer, my allergies just went berserk, because that's when all the different plants out in Utah, like cottonwood trees and sagebrush and Kentucky bluegrass, that's when all these things are belching all of their particles of life.
Yeah.
And those are things I grew up playing in, working in, and not being affected by. Well, all of a sudden, my allergies were going crazy. So I went and saw an allergist, and they did a bunch of skin tests, and lo and behold, you're allergic to cottonwood trees and sagebrush now, and dogs and cats. And I'm like, well, we grew up having dogs and cats.
Yeah, so now dander and pollen, you've got these huge allergies from.
So my body was in a state of very slow motion revolt, along with just all these different rips and tears that you get as an infantryman. And all of it was kind of heading towards collapse, which I can officially say was like 2010, if we're going to jump a little bit forward.
Yeah, we can jump forward. Before we do, when you left the military, when you separated from service, one of the things they do is they give a final physical.
Right.
That final physical is used to determine what the Veterans Administration may decide you have coming to you in the way of disability rating, which equates to a disability payment, because you did not spend 2 decades in the military. You were not eligible for a monthly stipend of retirement, but you could be eligible for medical payments associated with any service-related injury. So did you do a final physical?
I did.
And what was the final physical results? Did they find you injured on the job? Did they award you a rating at that time?
No. And you have to remember that as far as VA healthcare goes, not every veteran is covered. And my definition of veteran is somebody who's been in the service for 1 day. Because I was thinking about, for this interview, one of the guys that I went through boot camp with, Recruit Weaver, who's from Texas. He's a great dude. I hope he eventually graduated, but he didn't graduate with our platoon. He got a stress fracture.
Okay, so they recycled him.
Right.
Got it.
He deserves veterans health care. Well, fast forward. In 2003, the Bush administration, because the VA is under the presidency, right? It's a department that they can put their appointments in, decided that in order to get VA healthcare, you couldn't just be a veteran. You had to have a 20% service-connected disability in order to rate it. That means you have to have proven injuries and go through this burning set of hoops through the VA to prove that they are related to what you did. I didn't have that at that point. And I knew I had a lot of injuries, and the final physical showed that. Like, okay, I had a slap tear in my right shoulder. I tore this wrist falling through the roof. Luckily, I never got shot. I never got hit with any shrapnel. I have a bunch of concussions. And then, of course, on all of these post-deployment health assessment forms that we all fill out, I made sure to always be brutally honest in those about things that I knew, hey, we're burning trash. We're burning these chemicals. I'm inside of this vehicle that may have been showered in depleted uranium. But at that point, nothing was being, I guess, handed over to the VA. When you get to the end of your Marine life, I find this like stunning. And even now, like the young Marines that I'm still like mentoring that are in and they're getting ready to get out, I'm like, nothing has fucking changed. There is no real, we spent all these millions of dollars and times building up these citizens to become Marines. And as soon as the Marine Corps is done with you, fuck you, get out of our way. That is unacceptable. You need to be returning these Marines better than the fucking place that you found them. And so we need to like go through some kind of deboot camp for like 2 weeks where we really take a long look at all the things that you went through. I don't care, by the way, like I don't give a shit about the MOS thing and I was a grunt and you were a pogue and all that. Like, man, I really did kind of have like a one team, one fight kind of mentality. And some of the people that I saw get fucked up the most were not infantrymen. I was telling this story to AJ Pashudia in December. And on that final deployment, we had a Marine Corps birthday on November 10th in 2007. Okay. And we were in Diwania.
Wow. I was in Fallujah that birthday, but yeah.
So we get, KVR brings out a, $500 birthday cake. I'm sure that's how much it cost. We had the oldest and the youngest Marine out there. And during the party, we started getting fucking hit by IDF, by Katyusha rockets and some 80s and 120 millimeter mortars. And everybody runs into the scud bunkers, the duck and cover bunkers, which is just a low cement box that you can hide underneath while you're getting hit by indirect fire. Well, most of the people at this party, we invited everybody. Didn't matter what you were doing. So, and there weren't a ton of infantry like there. Most of them were support staff and admin folks who like do the stuff that lets me do my job. Yeah. Well, for me and my buddy, while we know that this IDF is being shot at the Polish because we've pushed them out into the street, they're not targeting this basketball court where we're having Marine Corps birthday. So we run out there under fire because we know the rounds that are nearby are dropping short to save the birthday cake. And because we're used to that. And we have fun around this shit, right? Yeah. But the people who are in the bunker who work on computers and fix engines are fucking terrified. But that's because they're not used to it. We are. And there were like many cases like that where people who were on these FOBs who never expected to fire a shot in anger got fucking killed, got mashed, got torn to pieces. And there is no rear in these wars that we've been fighting for the last 25 years.
Yeah, they're all asymmetric. There's no lines. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
The safest place that you could be was maybe in Kuwait. Like I could never really honestly tell somebody, you will go to sleep and be just fine here in Iraq and wake up tomorrow morning. Because I saw that not happen. I saw whole compounds just leveled by Katyusha rockets. And so I kind of like, I'm prefacing all that by saying, we don't really, even today, see the Marine Corps taking the time to detrain us and to go through a real physical that isn't going to just be, you go see the battalion medical officer and he just hits you off on a little checklist by looking at your knee and tapping you and, breathe through these long, put your stethoscope on your chest, but like doing some real testing of all the things that I look at in the book, which are concussions, toxins, and PTSD.
They've gotten better today. I think if you were to look based off of, 08, 09, 010 to 24, 25, now 26, it is the best that it's ever been, but there are still vast improvements that need to be made.
Yeah.
And this firsthand. The machine moves slow. Rudder corrections are not 5 degrees left and right. They're infinitesimal, minor, and they're driven by bureaucracy and politics, and in many cases, personalities, some of which you've alluded to. So there was no final physical that annotated beyond some of the superficial injuries that you presented what was really under the surface.
No.
And it took, you had said, 2010 really before anything.
That's when the bottom, I would say, fell out. That's when my health really collapsed.
2010 is when you said that you really started to have the bottom fall out. What do you mean by that?
So my brother and I have been running a skateboard company together since the end of 2006.
Okay.
Because he had joined the Marine Corps against my wishes, as all younger siblings do.
Okay.
Got caught with a handgun on a school property. So they shredded the contract. He went to county jail.
Wow.
I didn't want him to join the service or go back to jail or be in this gang that he was running with. So I opened the skateboard company as a means to help him out. Super creative kid. He was a genius, like self-taught, autodidact in all things. So I only got like a little bit of that compared to my brother. So he's a lot like my dad is probably the smartest person that I know. He's like scary intelligent. And my little brother's a lot like him. I'm more like my mom, more like farm-minded, and I'm really smart with my hands, maybe not always with my mind.
Okay.
But eventually we move up to Portland, Oregon. And while we were up there, I had just more of these allergy problems and these physical aches and pains that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. But something really blew up around June of 2010. And I'm a fly fisherman. So I was out on the Clackamas River and I've got a pole that weighs nothing. It's like a 5 weight, but it felt like I was bench pressing like 200 pounds. And it was really hard to walk around in the river. And my brother and I both broke out in these like little spots all over our body.
Really?
Yeah.
The both of you?
Both of us.
Okay.
So eventually I run over to the VA where I eventually am getting primary care after fighting for a couple of years. I got diagnosed with PTSD. By and large, because when I got back from my last deployment, my old mentor, Vietnam vet I told you about earlier, Robert Welsh, sat me down and said, if you don't take care of these things, they're going to take care of you.
What do you mean eventually? So it's 2008, you separate from service.
Right.
You weren't diagnosed with PTSD at that moment.
No.
I think PTSD diagnosis
but I knew I had it.
Still very amorphous, very rare.
Yeah.
I don't think that the medical complex, Navy medicine, really didn't have a good handle on it then. Okay, got it. You knew you had it.
For sure.
Why did it take 4 years? Was that 4 years of you continually engaging with the VA to try and convince them of a diagnosis?
That was until I got the official one. Yes.
When did you first petition for the diagnosis?
The first time was in 2006.
Okay.
Because remember, I had gotten out after I rejected recruiting duty orders.
Yeah.
So I had already applied that long ago. And that was as I mentioned earlier, under this whole new system of you have to have a 20% service connected disability. And in just the longer picture of, I don't like the name post-traumatic stress disorder or trauma, but it's the word we have, so we're going to go with it. We've always had, maybe historically as combat veterans, but just in the like American context, this kind of either fear of talking about these things or dealing with them, or your job is to just carry on and suck it up in the same way that you carried on and sucked it up while you were in the service.
Yeah.
So I knew that wasn't going to work though. I knew that wasn't going to work because I'd studied a whole bunch of World War I veterans while I was an undergrad. That's where I spent a lot of my time in like world history. I like learning about all history. It's all interesting to me. But the bulk of my time was spent studying First World War vets and reading all their like poetry and memoirs that they wrote in the 1920s when they came back. So I carried a lot of that like poetry and stories when I was in the service. And I always took solace in the fact that I'm not losing my mind. Maybe nobody else is talking about this in my battalion, but this is like normal. This is supposed to happen to me. I'm going to have these struggles and these problems. And having Robert being a combat vet and being a sniper, my mom wanted to say the same thing. Like, you're in a lot of trouble. You need to start doing something different. But if it came from my mom's mouth, even though I care about her, I would just be dismissive. What do you know? You're not a combat vet, So like, because this experience is so like, we're talking about 1% of us are in the service on average, 1% to 2%. The amount of us who were engaged in the kind of fighting and dying that we were in, of that 1%, is pretty minuscule. And I'm not here to like brag about that or say I'm like superior to anybody. I'm not into that. But there's like this whole weird vet bro culture now of not feeling like I did enough, or feeling like you need to lie about these things in order to have been there and faced the elephant and whatnot.
Yeah.
But because of how rare that is and how isolating it is, it just feels like, even now, in like this really like, I feel like pretty happy-go-lucky state that I'm in, that it's still just a completely lonely experience unless you're sitting down now with somebody who's, been through the gauntlet. And because of that, unless it comes from somebody who really has no judgment or has been through it themselves, it just can be unbelievably isolating.
I agree. Yeah. I think it is it's hard for type A personalities to admit that they have an injury. And it's one thing to say, hey, I've broken my arm or I've broken my leg. It's another to say, I don't feel right.
Yeah.
There's a huge level of vulnerability in that a lot of people don't want to undertake. And it does, I think you said it well. It requires somebody who either empathizes with you or you feel safe enough to know that there's a zero judgment. And as you said, it is oftentimes our family who identifies it first. So he sat you down and he said, take care of it or it's going to take care of you.
Improvise, adapt, and overcome.